States?
I do. South Carolina, United States. It's early morning here.
Wow. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
So, hi, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another session of Why UX Matters, the Chips and Pickle story by Dean Schuster. Um, so, today's it's an interesting topic. It's an interesting subject, UX, because we see on the web, on the internet, so many things are broken or designed poorly. You want to check out, you want just to buy one product, and it's like, oh, where's the checkout? That button, like, uh, we all find that frustrating. So I believe the Dean will share with us interesting insights and his point of view why and how we can improve our UX. He's the owner and partner at the company called True Matter in the US. It's early morning there. He's passionate about user experience and why it matters. So before I introduce you to, before I give the stage to Dean, two things. Our sponsor is Packed. They're giving away 20 ebooks. So if you're interested, if you want to get an ebook about AI powered commerce, all you have to do is just engage, ask questions, and 20 lucky people will win. We'll get the ebook. And other than that, let's welcome Dean. Dean, welcome to the stage.
All right. Hey, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start sharing my screen, and hopefully this will work great. All right. So you should be seeing my screen right now. Wonderful. Okay, here we are, Digital Marketing Europe. I'm so excited to be here. We're going to have a really good time today. Again, my name is Dean Schuster. You could find me at Experience Dean on Twitter and on Instagram. I am the founder and owner of True Matter. We are a UX firm. We care deeply about user experience. If we're going to be marketing professionals that attempt to raise awareness and drive people to digital products, those products may as well be really, really good when we get there. And that's where I come in, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And specifically, we are going to talk about pickles. And I know this is a little weird, but if you follow with me, it's all going to come together at the end. All right. This is why UX matters, the chips and pickle story. And specifically, it's my story. And here's a pickle. And I really, really hate pickles. Okay. Now, many of you listening will love them, they'll be the best thing you've ever had. I hate them. I think they're the worst. I hate how they taste, and it's gross, and I don't like them. And a real problem is if you put a pickle on your plate, all that pickle juice and pickle brine gets in everything else, and it makes everything taste like pickles. If you love pickles, that's good. If you hate pickles, that's really bad for me. And here in America, pickles come with your meal, whether you ask for them or not. Okay. If you order a sandwich, you are getting a pickle. You have to be the person that says, no pickle, please, regardless of whether they say on the menu a pickle is coming or not. It's coming. And that's another reason why I don't like pickles. Okay. Um, I hate them so much that I have to work really hard to practice how to not get them. I would beg, please, 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 don't give me a pickle with my sandwich. Please, please. And I'd get one anyway, all the time. So I tried new things. I would say, I'd like a turkey sandwich and no pickles, thinking that my hand motions alone will help. And they did. Of course, maybe people go into the back and say, hey, don't give that guy a pickle because, oh no, he's a little weird. Whatever it takes to not get a pickle. Okay, let me send you now to the villain of our story today, my story. Jason's Deli. This is a sandwich place here in America. Now they're really, actually, they do a nice job with their sandwiches. They do great food. It's wonderful. But you'll notice in this picture that a pickle is present. A pickle always, 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 always comes with a sandwich. So it's my job to not get the pickle. So far, so good. Now, I get it no matter what at Jason's Deli, no matter what I do, no matter how I ask, I always get the pickle. And so I started doing a little research, a little user experience research. Why do I always get a pickle at Jason's Deli? Because it's a big deal to me. So, I looked at their menu online just to see if pickles are even mentioned. Of course, they're not. And the menu online is quite huge. Right? It's a very crazy long menu, and it is something that contains a lot of different things, but no mention of pickles at all. So, I still get the pickle. What's going on? Now, one day I had a bad day at work, just a tough day, and I went to go get a sandwich, and I go to Jason's Deli and I say, "No pickles on my sandwich," and the pickle came anyway. And so I was upset. And the manager comes by and the manager says, "How's everything doing today? Are you having a good lunch?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I got a pickle and I need to understand your pickle process." And the manager looks at me like, uh, "Sorry to hear that, sir." And I'm like, "No, I'm serious. I need to understand your pickle process. How come I say no pickle and I still get one? What is happening back there in your kitchen that always means I get a pickle no matter when I ask for no pickle?" Right? So the manager says, "I'm going to find out." And he goes back to find out. And I learned why I always get a pickle. And that led to this entire talk. Now, on the cash register at Jason's Deli, there is one button that caused all of my problems. And it's the chips and pickle button. You see, if you want to have potato chips with your sandwich, which of course, every single sandwich comes with a side item of chips at this restaurant, there is a button on the cash register that is the chips and pickle button. If you get chips, everyone gets chips. You will get the pickle. It is part of their interface. That is why I always get the pickle. The interface demands it. So then when I say, "Hey, I don't want a pickle," the person at the cash register has to actually say to the other person down the line, "Hey, no pickle on that one order," even though the button said so. And that person has to remember to do it and has to change the sandwich. Now, sometimes the person making your sandwich changes because they're so busy and several people are working on your order, or it's busy at lunch and people don't hear the instructions. This is why I always get a pickle. It breaks the process and it's hard to control. I get it all the time. And of course, that makes me unhappy. I would much prefer that there were a chips button and a pickle button, but no, there is a chips and pickle button. So, thus my problem. So then I thought, wait a minute, maybe if I order online, things will be different. So I go online to Jason's Deli app and I'm going to order a turkey sandwich. No problem, right? This should solve my problem. So I go ahead and do that. Now, I look at the screen and see I can order a sandwich, no problem. And I see that I can order various sides with my sandwich. Okay, now we're in business. But if I get closer, I see that some chips come with pickles and some chips don't. I don't know why, but it's just the way it is. And of course, the only chips I want come with a pickle. There is no way to pick those chips without a pickle. So I've got another interface problem that's working against me. But then I notice underneath my choice of side, I have a special request field. All right. I'm going to give you a special request. I'm going to say, "Please, please, 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 no pickle. I actually don't want one." So I start to type that in and I can't finish typing it because there's only 25 characters allowed in the special request box. Of course, it doesn't say that. I just start typing and it stops letting me type. And so I can't finish my sentence. And I have to actually figure out that it stopped at 25 characters. And now I'm mad. I'm angry. And so I say, oh, I will give you 25 characters. So I go ahead and I say, no pickle with chips. No! Exclamation point. This is exactly 25 characters, I assure you. No more, no less. So I'm feeling maybe this will help. And then I notice below that field, there's another field. And this field is the personalize your meal field. How's that for marketing? Like I want to say Dean's Fantastic Sandwich or something. I'll give it a name. No, I'm not going to give my sandwich a name. I'm going to tell you again, I don't want any pickles. But I'm on to you now. I know you're only going to give me 25 characters. So I'm ready. Now, this is exactly 25 characters. If pickles, comma, God help you, period. 25 characters. You'd think that this would get the message across, of course. And I did get my sandwich, and it came with a pickle. So, still no success. Now, what have we learned from this so far? Bad user interface choices have totally ruined my sandwich. That's what we've learned. Now, we also learned something else, right? We also learned that there's bad processes involved here, and those bad processes have made the problem worse, especially in the restaurant itself and how they have to go and process my request. It doesn't really work process-wise. They don't have a process that automatically gives me no pickle. It just don't have, it doesn't exist. Now, I realize that this is a first world problem. This is not really a problem. This is an annoyance, and it's a minor annoyance, but it's really taught me something about interface. And I got to thinking about interfaces and how they affect us and how they cause problems for us and why they cause problems for us. And it got me to thinking about some rather serious problems, problems that really matter, not just Dean gets a pickle and he doesn't want one, problems that actually are a big deal. You see, interfaces that we use every day are really, really important, and usability and UX are super important to our functioning of our daily lives. And when things go wrong, they can go really wrong. So let's look at a few examples of things going really wrong. First example is something I call, and it's serious, 38 minutes to live. Now, back in 2018, I think in January, here in the United States, in Hawaii specifically, Hawaii, an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, people are driving to work one morning, minding their own business, and everybody's cell phone gets the same alert message. And as they're driving on the roads, they see big, huge signs that show the same alert message. Everyone in Hawaii gets it. It's on TV, it's on radio, it's on phones, it's on billboards. And this is the message: ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii. Seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill. Okay, there is a missile coming right now, and what do I do? Right, I'm scared. I'm freaking out because I'm thinking, wait a minute, North Korea is kind of close to Hawaii. This is a credible threat. North Korea has nuclear weapons, right? Not to mention the proximity of Russia to Hawaii. Okay, so people are legitimately concerned, and they are concerned for 38 minutes. Now, 38 minutes is a long time. That's basically longer than I'm going to speak today. And if you are in fear of your life, 38 minutes is forever, is forever. Now, 38 minutes later, a new message comes up on the cell phones and on TV and on all these billboards. And here is the message: missile alert in error. There is no threat. Whew. Now, that's nice. I'm glad there's no threat. Society disrupted all morning, sure. And the next day in the newspaper, it was an award-winning newspaper in Hawaii, leads a story that says, "Oops, we made a mistake. Someone pressed the wrong button," and apparently sent a real alert, not a drill. So I get to thinking, how can that be? How did that happen? I want to know, because do you have some kind of drop down button where you pick, an alert that's a drill or a real thing? Is that really what happens? That doesn't seem right. So I did a bunch of research and I found out that the state of Hawaii, the next day, the governor of Hawaii puts out this message that says this was the list from which someone picked the wrong option. So it's not really a button, it's more like a hyperlink. And if we look at this list, we see that two of the options look really the same. One of them, right, says drill, and one of them doesn't. And you have to even understand what all the words mean. It's not very easy to understand what it is at all. But one of them says drill. So I can see that maybe someone would make a mistake and pick the wrong one. I kind of would hope that after you pick missile alert, you'd get some sort of box that says, "Are you sure you want to send a missile alert to Hawaii?" I don't know. I just keep researching. But here's the thing, the next day, the state sends out a new screen. It says, "No, actually, that wasn't the screen. This is the screen where the error occurred." So now I already don't trust them. But I look at this screen and I say, I guess this is better, but not really, because on this screen, you have the same confusing options. One of them says demo, right? Which means just a drill. I can see people making a mistake here. This is a total mess. Now, I did some more research and found out the exact software used by many states in the United States to do their emergency messages. And this is the exact software that is used. This is a demo account of that software. So it shows kind of what the software is like, not how people actually use it. Because I was looking at that screen and that really looked like a drop down list to me. And so I found in the real software, they really do have a drop down list. And it looks exactly like this, where they have test templates and live templates. And you basically pick a template for an alert and you put everything in that you want and you send it. And yes, there actually is a screen that says, "Are you sure you want to send this alert or this drill?" So that does exist in the software. So now I'm wondering, how is there a problem? How is a wrong button pushed if you actually have another screen that says, "Hey, wait, are you sure you want to tell everyone a missile is coming?" All right. So we learned that in this software, they have some easier to understand words. They have test templates and live templates, test templates for earthquakes or, whatever, and live templates. Okay, that's a little better, not too bad. It's certainly better than the option on the right. Okay, so that's kind of good. So the question is, did someone make a mistake? Did a human make a mistake? We see that the interface is actually really bad, but did a human make a mistake? Now, the person who pressed the wrong button says, "No, no, 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 no. No, I did the right thing. I did exactly what I was told to do, and I can't see how I would have done anything different." Wow, that's a little bit weird. And that person actually ended up being fired from their job, sued the state of Hawaii, and that is still ongoing because they both radically disagree as to who's at fault. So let's step back for a minute because there's lots of problems here, and they're very similar to the chips and pickle problem. They really are. These are just serious. Um, there are certainly interface problems here. Okay. So first we see there's terrible content strategy. The words used to say what is a test and what is a drill are very complex. They're not written well. They're not clear at all. There's very poor naming. Let's go back a second. There's poor naming and organization to all of it. This could be a heck of a lot better. And the choices are confusing. All right. So that alone in a software interface is a serious problem. Now, there are other problems with this interface. It's very difficult to preview messages after you make them. There's lots of other problems with this software that are truly bad and truly contributed to the problem. But there was also a failure of functionality, right? You saw that there are live templates and test templates in the same dropdown. That is crazy. You should never do that. It's like a mistake waiting to happen. Again, you can't preview the messages, and users could do anything they want with this system, including sending a false alert. So that was a real big deal. But the bigger deal, just like my pickle problem, is there's a process problem. There's a process breakdown. There's super bad communication uh, in the Hawaii department, because what happened was there was a shift change. One shift is coming out, another shift is coming in, and the leader of one shift didn't tell the leader of the next shift what was about to happen, that there was a test about to go out. So the next person didn't know. And when they actually started the test, they found out that they used different language than they usually use. They didn't say test, they said exercise, exercise. And the person who heard about the test, it came over the loudspeakers in the phone. When they picked up the phone, the loudspeaker was muted and they never heard the words exercise, exercise, exercise. They just heard missile, go, do. And so the person is thinking they're doing the absolute right thing, warning the population. And all the procedures by which you could fix that had nothing to do with recalling a message. There was no way to do that. Um, so that's a big process issue. And of course, people weren't trained well on the interface. There's super big problems here. And the response was really bad. I mean, it took 38 minutes to fix this because someone just finally said, you know what we can do? We can just create a new alert that's a real alert that changes the old alert. And that is not a good solution. That's a hack solution, but it's all they could do. And it still took them 38 minutes. So, major problem. And everyone blames everyone else. And so we've got bad interface and we've got bad process. It's chips and pickle all over again, except a really big deal. Now, another example, very similar. And this is something that you might not have heard much about uh, uh, over in Europe, but is really a big deal here in America. And this was a near meltdown of a nuclear facility in the United States in 1979. So it's a good long time ago. And this is 3 Mile Island. This is in Pennsylvania in the United States. It's kind of near New York, if you know where that exactly is. And in 1979, one of the reactors in this plant almost melted down. It came close. It didn't actually, but it came really close. And there was a big, massive panic in the United States. People evacuating. They're getting out of here. Oh no, the reactor is going to melt down. What are we going to do? Now, this happened for the better part of a day. There's all this uncertainty until the engineers at 3 Mile Island found the problem, and they were able to solve the issue. The issue was there was a coolant wasn't getting into the reactor properly, so the temperature kept going up and up and up, and they couldn't stop it. And when they figured out what the problem is, they restored the ability to have coolant, and everything was basically fine. In a nutshell, okay, it's a very complex problem, but that's basically what happened. Now, as I like to always wonder, I wonder, well, why did it happen? Why did it happen? So let's sort of unpack a little bit of that. And there's an investigation that occurs. And this is the then president of the United States, Jimmy Carter, walking through the facility, touring it. And a clue toward the problem is this control room itself. Now, look how complex a nuclear facility control room is. Extremely complex in terms of its controls and buttons and switches and lights and all of this stuff and readouts. This is very serious stuff. Now, I read the entire Presidential Commission report on 3 Mile Island. You're welcome, and I will show the things that went wrong in the findings. Okay, and here's the thing: there's this little itty bitty valve. Okay, in the station, it's called the PORV valve. Okay, now this valve has to be closed Okay. So and that's a really important thing, right? You want to close this valve so that everything goes fine with coolant. Just trust me on that. Now, you do some things. You send a signal and to close that valve, and a light goes on the control panel. You did it, okay? And so you look at the control panel and you see, hey, the light's on. The PORV valve is shut. That means everything should be fine, but why is the temperature still rising? Okay. Now, here's the thing, that light on the control room, right? That light only went on when the signal to tell the PORV valve to close was sent. That light only goes on when you say, close the valve. It doesn't go on if the valve is actually closed. The valve got stuck. Okay. But the light is still on. So people look at the lights and go, well, the PORV valve is fine. I don't know what the problem is. It wasn't fine. So they started looking for problems elsewhere, ignoring the actual, rather simple problem. And the temperature keeps rising and they can't figure out why. And it was just one little interface that instead of signifying that something was done, it was simply signifying that something had been asked to be done. All right. That is a big deal, a very big deal, and a very bad interface problem. Now, there's more bad interface problem, more bad UX, okay? Because the shift supervisor, again, this happened during a shift change. Shift changes are dangerous, okay? The shift supervisor says in that big control room, there's almost always like alarms going off. In fact, there's at least 52 alarms going off at any time. Lots of different alarms. Which one is true? Which one is right? Which light is telling you the truth or not? Is basically the question here. And back in the day, if there was a malfunction of a certain button or a certain trip, it's not like today where you'd have a readout on a screen that says, there's an error here. This thing's not working. It's not how it worked in 1979. Do you know what they did? They wrote down on a piece of paper, hey, this button has a problem, and they tied it onto the button so that you'd know the button had a problem. That's true. That's just the way it was done. And here they are. And there were a bunch of buttons that actually had faults and errors. And here's the thing, these tags that say that a button has a problem, they're kind of big. And do you know what they did? They covered other lights that said there were other problems. So certain other alerts that were happening weren't seen. So we're going after the wrong problem, not the PORV valve. We don't see all the alerts. There's lots of them anyway. And we can't even trust the one that's important. These are interface problems. These are UX problems, aren't they? And here's the basic core of the problem. I want you to think the whole time about the Hawaiian missile thing and my chips and pickle problem. It's all about functionality. Function is first here, okay, in this nuclear facility. Everything worked as it was supposed to work, yet there was almost a meltdown. Uh, that's scary, right? That's a big deal. Nothing actually malfunctioned. The only malfunction was that little stuck valve, and that was actually easy to fix once you knew what the problem was, right? Everything worked as it was supposed to work. The interface certainly did. Human behavior interfered, right? Again, there was a shift change. There was poor communication about how to solve the problem. There were no policies and procedures in place to go back and try to figure out if the original problem was actually true. Changed policies and procedures work for nuclear facilities in the United States forever after this. They totally changed it. And so people following the wrong problem start trying to solve the wrong problem and almost made the real problem worse. Okay, and experience is really an afterthought here. No really thinking good user experience or good UI. And in this case, that's dangerous. That's not just I got a pickle, right? There's also process failure. Remember, interfaces and process go together. They're not separate things. So we talked about the poor communication, chasing irrelevant problems. They had rigid bureaucratic systems. This is how you do it differently. It took someone saying, wait a minute, let's go back and think of something different outside of policy and procedure. And when that person thought of something new and different, the problem was found. So a lot of process failure about bureaucracy. And of course, no one is wrong. No one really did anything wrong. Yet there was almost a meltdown. Okay. One more example before I tell you why this is all deeply important to us. All right. And this is an example that you also might not have heard about over in Europe. And this is a butterfly example here in the United States. And it stems from the 2000 election in the United States. Some of you may recall that that election was very, very close here in the United States. Now, to make a very long story short, in the United States, we don't have one big popular election for president. We have 50 states, and each one of those states has an individual election. And if you win California, all of California's votes, you get them. If you win South Carolina, where I'm from, all of South Carolina votes, you get those. And you have certain number of votes per state based on population. California got a bunch of electoral votes, way more than where I live, South Carolina, which is a small state. Okay, no problem there. Um, but at the end of the day, you need to get 270 votes to win. And at the end of election night, neither candidate, George Bush or Al Gore, had 270. It was that close. And there was one state left, and that was Florida. And that state was too close to call. I mean, hundreds of votes. That's all separated the candidates. Whoever gets Florida gets over 270 electoral votes and wins. And it was so close that you couldn't tell. They were having to do recounts and recounts. When it's that close, you got to be careful. So it took weeks and weeks and weeks. And I think 6 weeks later, a magazine comes out that says, "Who's the winner? We don't know." And it just shows you a half and half picture of each person. We don't know who the winner is yet. All right. And as it turned out, the winner ends up being George W. Bush after a whole series of recounts and Supreme Court decisions and things like that, that people in the United States still argue about today. Well, what we're going to talk about is why it was such a problem in Florida. Again, always ask why. Why? And the answer was this. In parts of Florida, they used to use a really old butterfly ballot system. This is a paper ballot that's put into a machine, and you have to punch holes in the choice you want with a little pin. Now, these particular machines were used in a couple of places in Florida that were really close. And people said, why these places with these machines? Why are they the close ones? And why are the results really not quite what we'd expect? Because in a lot of those places where there were problems with the vote count, were heavily Democratic places, places that Al Gore expected to win with huge margins. But it was really close. And in those places, this other candidate, not even George Bush, this other candidate, Buchanan, got a lot of votes. And he was a third party candidate that didn't get a lot of votes like anywhere. And we're wondering why. Why did this guy, who's going to get almost nothing, get a bunch of votes? And Buchanan was the far right candidate. So it was very, very different from Al Gore. Why is this happening? And we looked at the ballots, okay? And the ballot looked like this. It's a really confusing ballot, right? You've got two sides. You got odd choices on the left, even on the right, and they all point into the middle where you have these holes you have to punch through, and you have to punch through the hole that corresponds to the number of the candidate you want. Whew, okay, very tough. Now, you could look at it really closely for a while and maybe get it right, but you can see how someone would make a mistake, right? Because when you look at the candidates here, you've got the Republican in the top left, then the Democrat. This is George Bush on the top, Al Gore next, and over on the right. So, okay, let's look at it. If you want to vote for the Republican, George Bush, that's pretty easy. Okay, you look at number 3, you see basically one hole you can punch. Okay, that's fine. That's okay. If you want to vote for Pat Buchanan, again, very few people were going to vote for this guy. You look and you see, okay, I kind of punch near that 4. Not so bad. That seems right. But if you want to vote for the Democrat Al Gore, which one do you punch? He's second on the list, but the second hole that you punch would actually vote for Pat Buchanan. If you vote for the one that's near him, are you voting for someone else or him? There's 2 choices here. You could easily choose one or the other, and you could easily make a mistake, and a lot of people did. They start punching one and, oh, that's not the one I wanted. And they do something else, and maybe two holes are punched, and the ballots have problems. And it was chaos, total chaos. Because if you punched that second option, you didn't vote for Al Gore, you voted for Pat Buchanan. That means, did Al Gore lose a bunch of votes? We don't know. It's hard to tell. And that's what made this process so complex and take so long. We had to study every single ballot to try to get it right. Now, here's the problem with the interface. It's terrible, right? It's completely bad design. And that is clear, right? It's a very awkward experience. How could you expect someone to get that right? But more to the point, it's function fit, right? Its design fits the machine. That butterfly ballot had to look that way because that's the way the machine was. That's why it was designed that way. Not because it was a good idea, but because it fit the machine. And then, of course, there's just general malpractice going on here because they only planned for what happened if everything went right. If something went wrong, there were no plans for how you figure out which ballots were correct or not. And it only works. It works better if there's only a couple of candidates, but in a presidential election, there's a lot. It is really a problem, and there's no way to solve it. Right? No plan for failure. And of course, the implications were really big. This changed an entire election in a country, and it's just a little interface problem and a corresponding process problem. It's really crazy. Now, let's pause and go back to what matters a lot to me, which is the pickle problem. Okay. The briny cucumber, right? The thing that actually is silly and doesn't matter had the same kind of problems that the serious problems had. Interface problems that are compounded by process problems. Let's look at those real quick. Chips and pickle button. Do you want to know why there's a chips and pickle button in the cash register of Jason's Deli? Because I found out why. I did a lot of research, and there's a chips and pickle button, not a chips button and a pickle button, because there was only room for one more button in the interface. They just didn't have room. And so they just made it fit. That's it. And because of that, I get a pickle all the time. Now, I'm an outlier. I'm an edge case. Most people like pickles. I don't, right? So that's a problem for me. Now, here are the UX UI offenses that Jason's Deli caused. Function fit. That means we fit the design to the technology, not the other way around, or not make them together. That's a problem with every single one of these examples. It's super internally focused. Everyone cares about chips and pickle always going together at Jason's Deli just because they always do. That's how they think of it internally. So it's nothing to them to create a chips and pickle button. Now, it's a silly thing, but what if that were a serious thing? Because that's how serious interface problems are created, that in other situations could mean life or death. Of course, everything in Jason's Deli was inconsistent, right? What happened online, what happened on mobile, what happened in person, all very different. Hard to know why. And of course, I get the pickle. Now, okay. And of course, the process at Jason's was terrible. You're not really testing for a good edge case. I'm your edge case, but I'm irrelevant. Okay, I get it. Everything's lost in translation. Again, poor communication. That was true of almost every single problem we looked at that were serious. And there's no controls in place when things go wrong. This is all sounding very familiar, isn't it? Problems like this are very similar when you dissect them. And of course, that means I always get the pickle. Pickle I don't want forever. Okay, now let's end by talking about why it's important. Because we work on a bunch of designs and interfaces here at True Matter. And this is one of them. This is a hospital intranet. And it's a super complex intranet, lots of stuff. It helps people do their jobs. It's a big deal. It's designed simply and carefully. It's based on research and study and discovery, all of this. And one of the things we learned is that, finding documents is really important to everybody. They got to find the right policy, the right procedure. They got to find it quickly. And we learned all about that and designed something wonderful and beautiful. And we were happy because we knew we were doing something important, because UX is at its core, as we've learned today, it is truly important, despite what I'm saying about pickles. Now, in our research, we learned all sorts of great stuff. Okay, like we learned people saying like, I can't even do my job without the internet. All right, we're important. We're making something big. But then we see an even more important statement that nurses in particular were making. They were saying things like, if I don't find a policy and procedure very, very quickly, there are problems because my patient might be having trouble. And if seconds count while I'm trying to find something to understand how to do something right, my patient could be bleeding, could be dying. And as soon as we read that, we focus. We are doing something important. And every little interface decision we make, every UX decision we make is suddenly extremely valuable and important. Every little one. And that makes us feel like we're doing something right. And we really bear down and do the best possible job we can do. So, what we learn is that little things have major, major impact. All the things we talked about today, including the finding of documents in a hospital intranet, are little things, but they have huge impact. They can just, interface problems can disrupt elections, can send whole states into chaos, can nearly cause meltdowns of nuclear facilities, can always give me a pickle for lunch. Okay. Um, Process is just as important as interface, okay, as UX. They're one and the same. They're all experience. Okay, experience is just how you interact with a thing. Okay, and so all the marketing and communications we do surrounding the creation of a great experience only matter if that experience we have is actually right, good, proper, safe, and excellent. That's why UX is so important. Okay, and we do actually serve a broader purpose in that sense, right? We're actually solving problems that are serious. We're not making an interface. We're not making a good experience. We're helping save lives. We're helping keep people safe. This is important stuff. And for the people who make my sandwich without a pickle, you're making my day, sure. Because if we can learn one thing about our talk today, is that pickles are truly, truly terrible things. Okay, that is the Chips and Pickle story. Why UX matters. Again, my name is Dean. You can find me online in all sorts of ways. I would love to connect with you and talk with you about UX, whatever, about any of these examples. There are actually a lot more examples. I encourage you to Google all of them. They're very, very interesting. And again, connect with me anytime you like. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And I'm ready for any questions we might have. And I
Thank you very
appreciate
much,
y'all.
Dean.
Thank you.
It was an interesting presentation. I like pickles, so I don't mind it. It comes with pickles. I was like, yeah, that's
Most
fine.
people do, I just don't.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
but
funny
it's
how
yeah,
something that silly can make me think about the value of UX and experience. And it led to all of this research. And it really changed the way I think about what I do. Just that one day where I asked the question, why does this happen with pickles
yeah,
at lunch? You can really discover interesting things in the most unusual places.
yeah. So if anyone has a question, there's a bar on the right hand side. You can ask any question you want, or there's a chat as well. You can ask any questions you want, or you can connect with Dean on LinkedIn, and obviously connect and engage. And Google the stories. I mean, the stories were interesting, and I'm sure that
Thank you. Yeah, you
by
should Google them. They're more interesting even than I was able to show briefly. They're fascinating things.
yeah. There's one question. The only person who did this presentation of it was you. It was a better way. Is it a better way? The only
Um,
person who did the.
I'm not quite sure what you mean. You think, is there a better way? That's a whole other talk. But yes, there is a better way, and it's pay attention to the little things from the beginning. Okay. If you're doing that, if you're paying attention to process from the beginning, you have a better chance at making something good. And that's true of anything we do.
Yeah, I mean the small little details matter, right?
They matter. They're everything.
There was uh, I'm trying not to mention the company. There was this thing, and the UX of the app was so bad. Not so, it was bad. You just
Yeah.
couldn't click the X, like basic stuff. And I thought to
Yeah.
myself, they invested in that particular event, maybe I don't know, 100, 150,000 pounds. It's
Oh,
like, and
yeah.
you couldn't. It's like, come on, man, an app.
Yeah.
It's basic stuff, and just was just
It happens
frustrating. Every
all the time.
yeah.
People miss the little things.
Based
Content
another question
strategy,
for
functionality. Sorry, go ahead.
based on your stories, the essentials of UX seem to come down to content strategy, functionality, communication,
Mm.
procedures, training, responsiveness, and consistency. Test edge cases. Is there anything else missing?
Yeah, what I would say is how you start matters. That's really everything. And if you start attempting to make sure you understand your users and what they need to do and how they actually behave, you have a great chance at making something that's right. Every one situations, actual users were not considered properly. If there had been testing of what happens when something goes wrong, all of these problems would have been discovered before they were problems. All of them. It means we weren't listening enough or modeling or testing enough with users. That is the big thing that's missing. Now, for the pickle, it's silly because no one's going to test for like one guy, and that's a silly example. But in the other examples, they were very big problems that should never have been problems.
Hmm. Loretta asks, can we solve all the issues by having in the team a QA specialist to test everything?
No, because QA tests existing functionality. If we did proper QA testing at 3 Mile Island, everything would have passed. If we did proper QA testing of the butterfly ballot, it would have passed. If we did QA testing of the system in Hawaii, it would have passed. QA won't solve your problems. They'll only tell you whether something does or does not work as specified. Almost everything in every case here worked exactly as specified. The problem was how people actually use it. And what they actually need to know. So this is a different kind of testing. You need to test with users. That is not the same as QA. So user testing, thinking of users in the first place, testing with them later, solves these problems.
Awesome, that's great. I think if you have any more questions, please connect with on LinkedIn.
Please do.
And yeah, I think we covered for today. Dean, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Um, tomorrow is a new day. We have day two of our conference. We have some amazing speakers lined up. Basically, we have track sessions as we had today, keynote sessions. One of the amazing speakers is myself.
All right.
Yeah, so join me tomorrow. Joking aside, now tomorrow is a full day of great speakers sharing ideas, insights from day one. I learned so many things listening to amazing speakers like Dean. Yeah, once again, thank you so much. Thank you, Dean. Thank you guys for attending, for
Thank
being
you.
active. And yeah, the conference is sponsored by Pact, and they're giving 20 ebooks away. 20 ebooks away if you want to learn how to build a product or services AI powered. Just engage with us, and by end of the day tomorrow, you might get the ebook. From me, that's all. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you, Dean. Thank you, guys. Take
Bye.
care. Bye.